how do we unpack and unravel the power in this secret shadow government and this secret army known as D6 and the CIA? How do we stop them? Is it even possible?
We need a regime change in the United States. One where we actually get rid of this government and rebuild a new one, right? We are completely captured by the crown. If the founding fathers saw what was happening right now and saw how the degree to which we were captured by the British Empire, they would be leading the charge on this. And obviously it's different times. It's very difficult. We can't do this with violence. We can't do this in the ways, 100 years ago. But we have a model, and this is what the quantum movement is. This is what it's intended to be. There was a successful model for regime change. Came out of Iceland in 2011. They had this thing called the Panama Papers that came out, and the Panama Papers were like this WikiLeaks-esque expose of government corruption, of offshore accounts, and it showed that a lot of the members of their government at the highest levels were eyeballs deep in this corruption. And so a hacker and internet activist-led movement emerged that they focused narrowly on these issues of fighting this corruption and passing what they call the crowdsourced constitution that would close the doors and not allow them to do these things anymore. And they came together and they got people elected, and they actually succeeded in passing a crowdsourced constitution. Again, a thing called the pirate party, like with a pirate flag, kind of a parody movement. They stormed into power in Iceland. They spoke simply, they spread the word carefully, they stormed into power, and they passed successfully a crowdsourced constitution in Iceland. And that's the model that we need to copy here, right? We need to come together. We need to get back to the basics and put our differences aside and say, listen, this is an absolute emergency, and we are all getting driven down to the gates of hell if we do not find a way to put aside our differences and come together right now on these very basic issues. And so that's what we intend to do here. Obviously, once the CIA saw how successful the Pirate Party was in Iceland, they came and astroturfed an American Pirate Party over here. That's just a bunch of communists, so that we would all be like, ew, yuck, what is that? But the Icelandic Pirate Party model, right? Focusing on this corruption, focusing on the basics, getting this input, putting forth a constitutional solution that a lot of people could get on board with widely, is what we're trying to do here, right? If we stay divided, we are going to be conquered. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about that. So we are working on uniting with the left and attracting some of these ideologically galvanized audiences, I call them. So the groups that are up on the screen here, these are groups of people who don't vote, right? The biggest groups of people in the country don't vote. And they are each of these groups is used to being called crazy by the mainstream media, so they're ideologically galvanized enough to ride with us to the end. They vibe very much so with the flavor that we got going in the quantum movement. So this is the UFO disclosure community. 8 million, give or take, strong in the United States right now. Millions of people. The crypto crowd, right? They're used to everyone calling what they do fake, and they don't care what the mainstream media says. They're going to hold either way. The spiritual, new age, hippies, crystals, psychedelics, that community is massive. And if you notice, during the COVID lockdowns, they were out there right next to the Trump supporters with their drums, the drum beating hippies, protesting those COVID lockdowns too.
Oh, yeah.
The naturopathic medicine community, right? So the things that instead of big pharma, we want to have these natural solutions. This is a big growing industry in the United States. There's a huge naturopathic medicine college in Arizona, and this is becoming a very popular thing. The sovereign and state national crowd, so kind of like, I would say Ammon Bundy might fall into that, but the people who understand the United States corporation, and we want to just remove ourselves from that completely. 15 million strong. People are willing to go fill out the paperwork and go through the steps to actually make that happen, right? So they're dedicated. And then the EDM and the raver community, right? They are a very amenable crowd to kind of the flavor we're putting forth here. We had some experience with them on the Dread Dickerson campaign. But if we take the disaffected left, so the Joe Rogan, Russell Brand, Jimmy Dores of the left, that's about 15 to 20 million people. We get the disaffected right, so the people that are drain the swamp, but are like hardcore drain the swamp, and they're not going to be talked out of it or shamed out of this, talking about elections or all this other stuff, right? That's tens of millions of people. We bundle those groups together with these ideologically galvanized audiences that in the past don't vote at all. And now all of a sudden we have exactly the mandate that we need to get this party started. Right. So and that's what we're doing. We're already well underway with that right now. And one of the first things we got to do, right, is we have to declare bankruptcy as a country, right? Because a lot of people, think of bankruptcy as Armageddon, but if you think about corporations, right, they get too much debt. They can put themselves into bankruptcy and restructure and get rid of some of that debt, protect their key assets, and emerge as a much more functional entity on the other side of it.
With a better
And when
balance
I
sheet.
talk to lefties, because a lot of lefties, they hear this whole plan, they hear kind of my premise, and they're like, we love everything that you say, but we just can't figure it out. Why in the hell would you like Donald Trump? Like, what was that all about? We can't get on board with that. And I say, listen, I like Donald Trump because I wanted a bankruptcy, right? And you guys love to say, like, every other day how he's the bankruptcy guy. It's like, yeah, he is good at, putting corporations through a bankruptcy process and emerging stronger on the other side of that, right? And he's used to doing that in the middle of the spotlight, getting tons of hatred of the press. So in my humble estimation, this is exactly the guy we needed to do the bankruptcy that we desperately needed to survive as a country, right? So, and when they hear that, they're used to thinking like, oh, these Trump supporters, they're just, indoctrinated and they don't see any of Donald Trump's flaws. And to them, I'm like, no, dude, I see Donald Trump's flaws, and that particular one is actually a tool that we really need right now, like almost more than anything else. So I'm not, I have no, delusions that Donald Trump is like the messiah of the messiahs that's just going to do everything magical, but like he's the blunt object that we needed to bang through this bankruptcy, right?
Yeah.
So they really like kind of sends them for a loop when they think about that. I'm like, yeah, and then we can have a new country, right? I tell him this guy was 8, he's going to be 80, right? He's not going to be around forever, right? Wouldn't you want a new country? Wouldn't that be a nice gift, right? Then we could make it awesome how we want to make it.
Don't even talk about what we argue between each other as to our differences. Let's come together on a list of things that we need to do that we can all agree upon, no matter what our ideological differences are, right? That's the only way we're going to be able to come together.
Yep. And so as you mentioned, right, this Internet Bill of Rights, the idea of this data clawback with this potential for this universal passive income, right, super attractive to lefties here. One of the other things is we are talking about, so we have to have this constitutional convention, right? And we can't just go into it blind and just pray for the best, right? We kind of have to have like, all right, what is the Constitution going to say on the other side of this? And what I tell my right-leaning friends is, look, it's going to say pretty much the same stuff, but we're going to be able to go to these activist lefties who think this country is racist and sexist and all this stuff. Be like, tell you what, new constitution, and minorities and women will just be able to vote straight out of the gates, right? Similar to what we have, but they'll be able to vote straight out of the gates. So voila, problem solved. We're not a racist country anymore, right? We don't need amendments for that. We will get rid of the 14th Amendment, right? The one that says slavery is not allowed, except caveat in the case of if you've ever been in prison. That is a BS amendment, right? There's a couple of them that are very toxic to us. We're going to add the concept of innocent until proven guilty. A lot of people don't know this, but innocent until proven guilty is not stated anywhere in our Constitution. They teach us that in school as if that is, but nowhere in our Constitution is it say innocent until proven guilty. And that is essentially the basis for what allows them to just violate people's Sixth Amendment rights to a speedy trial nonstop, right? Look at these J6ers, look at a lot of these other guys. Almost no one gets the right to a speedy trial, right? So we need to be like, hey, right to a speedy trial or specified penalty, as in like you get out, cases dropped or whatever it may be. But we need to have penalties specified for officials that just ignore the hard set bedrock Bill of Rights in our Constitution willy-nilly, right?
Hold on a second. Pause for 1 second. Just a quick answer. I know the answer because I've been on the other side of the bar in shackles. Does the Constitution even apply when you're in their jurisdiction at all?
It does not.
It does not.
It does not.
No, it does not.
So that needs to change, right? So I tell people, look, if our rights don't apply, then we don't actually live in America like we think we do. And for a lot of us, we would like that. We would like to actually live in America again. So, people, like I said, they get kind of nervous when I say a new constitution, but it's like new constitution. We're going to placate the left by saying women and minorities can vote straight out of the gates, right? That, to a lot of us, we're like, whatever, but like that is to them a very big deal. That would be a huge selling point to them. Fix the 14th Amendment, make our Bill of Rights actually exist, innocent until proven guilty. Other than that, pretty much the same. And then add the Internet Bill of Rights. So Internet Bill of Rights is 3 main tenets. First tenet, Internet is a public utility, right? In the same way you can't cancel someone, that you can't cancel their power, like the power company can't cancel your power because they don't like your politics. The water company can't shut off your water because they don't like your politics. The phone company can't shut off your phone because they don't like your politics. Same thing has to apply to the internet, right? They can't cancel you, degrade your service, like they can't give you half the water to your house if they don't like your politics. They can't let it, have the faucet come out in a trickle, right? No more nonsense. These social media companies, these tech platforms that operate at a scale way greater than any monopoly throughout all of world history, right? In exchange for that monopoly status, they have to be public utilities and they cannot be kicking people off willy-nilly. So that's tenet number 1. Tenet number 2, data clawback, right? This data that I produce is my sovereign property. It goes into a blockchain that I own, and anyone who touches it, any corporation, any law enforcement agency, anyone whatsoever, you will pay me my cut.
Listen, let's not to dumb it down, but you and I had this discussion just within the past 24 hours. And let me explain it to where everyone can understand. You don't even need to be technical. We all have a telephone number, right? When I dial your telephone number and you're anywhere in the world, what phone rings? Yours.
My phone.
Blockchain is essentially assigning a number to you. It's a much longer number than a telephone number. And every time somebody calls it, uses it, taps into it, dials that telephone number, that's when you know that they're looking into your data. It could be the FBI wanting to surveil you. You get paid. You can either lock it down and protect your privacy, or if they're buying and selling your energy and your data, you get paid on it, correct? Same thing like a telephone number for every person, isn't it?
Absolutely. And my one anecdotal example that I like to use, people are like, oh, there's really that much money in it? Like, how would that work? People get $1,000 to $1,500 a month, every single person in the United States. How would that even work?
Oh, yeah.
And they have these things for car insurance, right? Where you can have the little beacon and you can drive around with it in your car. And they say, oh, if you're a safe driver, we'll give you $200 a month off of your car insurance bill. Right. And what they don't realize is that $200 a month does not come from your safe driving. That $200 a month comes because they get all of the data of everywhere you go, how fast you travel, how you drive, what places you stop, and for how long. Just that data from your car, from that one little beacon alone, is worth $200 a month. And imagine all of the other data vectors, everything you do in the medical field with the hospitals, right? Everything you do at the bank, everything you do online, every conversation you even have with your phone present, it's listening to you and transcribing that into this thing. So the money is there, and we can go left and say, look, back our play, and you get your universal passive income, right? These Democrats, they talk a big game about universal health care, minimum wage, all this stuff. They're never doing anything for you. But if you back us up, tell you what, we got you with the universal passive income. And how could they say no to that, right? And the ones that I've talked to, even the most, perceivedly hostile to a sort of a right-wing seeming sort of person like me, the BLM people of the world, the Antifa people of the world, the staunch Democrats of the world, they love this idea, right? And they're starting to realize that hey, these Democrats are never giving us anything. So, why not try it? Right. And when you don't say it, it's not a Republican thing, it's the quantum party thing. It's the quantum movement thing. Right. It's not associated with this toxic branding of the past. The quantum party is not meant to be like a normal political party. The quantum party is meant to be like an integrator party. Right. It's meant to be a collection of all these other various groups to say, hey, for this temporary period, we got to put aside our other differences, our other wish lists, and we got to come together on these basic things. Otherwise, we are all going to not have any freedom.
And again, I want to overemphasize the point. Imagine, ladies and gentlemen, you're sitting at the dinner table, and let's say on Thanksgiving, and we all have arguments about politics, and we have in the past between Democrats and Republicans. If you set the ground rules and say, the only thing we're going to talk about is not our political differences. We're going to set the rules of engagement. We're only going to talk temporarily about things that we both agree upon that we're going to go after, regardless of our political persuasion. You just make that, it's a short list, an internet bill of rights. Does everybody here at the table, Democrat, Republican, the left, they want a freebie, right? So you present it as a freebie. The right, if you let them know, hey, guess what? All the energy that you're putting in on the internet, they're making $5,000 a month on you. Don't you want a portion of that? Get your part of the, the take, the economy that they're building on your back. Don't you want to get a commission on that? So you don't necessarily present it as a free handout. You tell them you get a percentage of the take. And that's the Republican side that's going to be enticed by taking that. Awesome plan.
It's a business deal. And it takes, like, the tech companies are stacked full of all of this revolutionary Marxist energy, right? There's a lot of that sort of thought in those tech giants already. So if we can take that and hijack that and weaponize that straight back at them, they're going to have some big problems now, right? Yeah. Yeah. They are going to have their own people revolting from the inside against them. Yeah. So that's the first two tenets of the Internet Bill of Rights. The third one, briefly, in Arizona and a lot of places, they are doing this brain interfacing technologies, right? So they have these wireless things that you can either control a computer, you can have like this synthetic telekinesis where you could talk to somebody, you could control a car, a computer, whatever with your mind, and you can get messages, thoughts, whatever, pushed back into your mind with no hardware. So this third premise, right? So we have the first one, public utility. Second one, our data is our sovereign property. The next one is our mind and our body is our sovereign property. Like, you are not allowed to read or write any thoughts to my brain without my explicit permission and not through these BS terms of service things, right? So imagine right now, like, your phone looks at all your pictures. You have Android or Apple. It uses AI and looks at every single one of your pictures and identifies what that is. It reads all of your texts. It collects your offline conversations. So imagine a world 10 years from now where you don't even have to verbalize something out loud. You just think about it. And all of a sudden, now you're getting ads pushed back into your mind, right? Not even a physical ad. You're getting ads straight to your head from something you just thought about, right? That is an absolute nightmare, right? And it would take this fifth generation warfare concept of where they can hop people up and psychologically manipulate people, almost like mind control, to a whole nother level, right? So this is absolutely terrifying, absolutely scary. And this needs to be one of the things on the list of, like, absolutely not. This is mine. The data is mine, the body is mine, the mind is mine.
Yes.
Nothing without my permission, right?
They have patents.
Nanobots.
I just want to add one quick thing. They have a patent. I read it. How to communicate with the subconscious mind by bypassing the eyes and the ears. Patented technology to communicate with your subconscious mind. And the only way that they can do that is so that you let your guard down and not know about it. And that's the evilness, because you want Hillary Clinton driving around in your mind, or whoever your political opponent is. Correct?
Yeah, and if you look on QIntelPro, there's a mind control page, and there's DARPA studies done in like 2013 and 2014, 2015 in Arizona at ASU, not far from where I live, that they were doing this. It's called remote transcranial magnetic stimulation. So they could take operatives and sit in a building across the way and shoot magnetic waves at your head and essentially manipulate you into believing anything, thinking anything, or taking any action, right? This is a hard set DARPA study that they succeeded at almost a decade ago. And this is just one of the many vectors, like I said, where they can wirelessly interfere with your thoughts. They can literally mind control you. And so this is the kind of thing, right? This needs to be covered. This is the kind of thing where if we wait until this is a huge problem on a mass scale with society, then it will be way too late to regulate it. There's no way to rein it back in, right? So this is a very vital imperative of the Internet Bill of Rights. So the three, public utility, no censorship, pay me for my data, and stay out of my brain without permission, pretty much. That's the Internet Bill of Rights, and that is the most substantial add-on to the Constitution that we're proposing as part of this regime change here. And we think that if everybody thinks about it, that they could really get on board with that. So some of the other things we need to do, we need to declassify everything. UFOs, JFK assassination, all
everything.
finders, all this crap that they're hiding and putting these BS classifications on, that gets made public. And that right there gets the really amps up the UFO disclosure crowd, right, to have our back, to charge hard with us.